Hello friends, welcome back to Learn My Technologies YouTube channel. My name is Ankush. In our today's lecture, we are going to understand about again, which is very important because I have seen this interview question is coming. So whenever you are trying to create a Azure Databricks cluster, there are two different type of cluster you will find. The first one will be your all job cluster, and second will be your this all job cluster. We called it as an interactive cluster also, interactive cluster. And second type of cluster we called it as a job cluster. We called it as a job cluster. So people are asking like, what is the main difference between these two cluster? So just take an example. I have one notebook is there. Okay. I have one notebook where I have written some sort of code I have written here. Let's say I want to read some file and I want to make some transformation. So I have this notebook is there. Okay. Now, whenever I'm running this notebook, we need to allocate some resources, right? To this notebook, we need to allocate the driver memory. Then you have other different memories, storage, and everything. We are going to the processes and everything that we are going to specify to this notebook, right? Now the question is like when I'm running this notebook, from where those resources will come, right? So these resources or which cluster it will use. In that case, it will use this all job cluster. So this all job cluster or interactive cluster, we always create it manually. Whenever you want to create a cluster, when you think that, okay, I want to run the Databricks job, that time we create a cluster. That cluster, we are creating it manually. And that cluster, we called it as an interactive cluster. Again, but when I'm comparing it with the job cluster, this job cluster will be created automatically. So as soon as you start any job, the cluster will be created and that cluster will be destroyed automatically as soon as that job get failed or that job gets succeed. So this is like, automatically the job cluster will be getting created. Another difference will be this interactive cluster you can share with your team also. Like let's say you have a multiple developers are there and everyone want to use the same notebook and they want to run the job, so they can use this all job cluster also. This is shareable. But when it comes to the job cluster, this is like isolated for your single job. So this is isolated and this is shareable among your all job cluster. Now you might have a questions like which is more costly, right? So this all job cluster is costly. This is actually costly because anything which is available under the job cluster, it is persistent. Like what I mean to say over here, why it is costly, because unless and until you are not deleting this cluster, it will consume your resources and you will keep getting a bill from your Azure also. So this is costly. Again, it is shareable, so multiple developers can work together. This is little cheaper. Why? Because whenever you are submitting the job, that time only the job cluster will be getting created and automatically it will get destroyed also. So these are some basic differences are there in between your interactive cluster, we called it as a all job cluster, and the second one will be your job cluster. The most important thing that you need to understand this, whenever you want to run any notebook, that time we are using all job cluster, because when you create a notebook, that time we need to attach, this all job cluster, and when the notebook is running, that time it will create a job cluster. you know the resources will be allocated and automatically it will get deleted also. So that is how this job cluster works. This is quite cheaper, this is expensive. Again, you need to delete this manually and this will be deleted automatically when you are using job cluster. Now how much resources, like how we can allocate the resources to this cluster? Basically, when you create a cluster, that time it will ask you what type of cluster you want to create, whether you want to create standard cluster, whether you want to create premium cluster. So depending upon what options you are selecting, the number of resources will be allocated. But this we can see when you are creating a cluster practically. So in my next video, I'll show you how to create a Azure Databricks cluster, and I'll show you how we can allocate the resources, how this job cluster looks, how this all job cluster looks, that I will show you practically. But for that, you just need to subscribe to this channel. And again, if you are looking for Azure data engineering training, you can reach out to the LearnMate. The numbers are available here.